Good morning, everyone. This is I, Subhijana, here at the Pasadi Vihara. And I have a very deep sutta to share today. This is the greater discourse on the elephant's footprint. This is Majjhima Nikaya number 28, MN 28. And I chose this sutta because I was doing some study and I heard a talk by Bhante Sujato, and he was going into some details in the sutta. I've studied this sutta before, but it's just such a deep sutta. The simile is of an elephant's footprint and how all the animals who roam the earth, their foot is smaller, so their footprint can fit inside of an elephant's footprint. So the elephant's footprint is chief among all the footprints of all the animals that roam the earth. So it has the largest. It's a very noble being. It was considered a noble being in the time of the Buddha, and they're very intelligent animals. So just this way, the Four Noble Truths contain all the teachings of the Buddha. So I've been studying the sutta, I see that it's a very deep teaching. So I'm gonna share the sutta on the screen so others can see it. And this is Bhante Sujato's version, or not version, but translation. And going to the top because here it is. And he says the longer simile of the elephant's footprint, Mahahati Padopana Sutta. So I'll start reading and then I'll make some comments as we go along, and I'll do the best I can. I've listened to other teachers, including a talk by Bhante Bodhi, and looked at other translations, including Ajahn Nisaro. So I'm getting a sense. I'm getting deeper and deeper into the sutta, what the Venerable Sāriputta is sharing with us in the sutta. And I think, as all suttas, we should reflect again and again on them, and we'll get more and more out of them. So if it's seeming confusing or difficult, it's normal because it's a very deep teaching. And if you can understand it clearly, oh, wonderful, that's wonderful. You don't have any difficulty with it, but most people will have difficulties with some aspects of the suttas. So I really encourage to ponder the different English translations, if that's your mother tongue, or your own, if there's translations in your mother tongue, then study that as well as the Pali if you can. So here we go. We'll start the sutta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhuttam dhammam sangham namasami. So I have heard, at one time the Buddha was staying near Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. There, Sāriputta addressed the mendicants. So we have Sāriputta here teaching, and he was given he was encouraged by the Buddha because of his wisdom to be a teacher. So the Sāriputta says, reverends, mendicants, it's awuso. It's a friendly term. Sometimes it's translated as friend. But Bhante Sujato has translated that as reverence. And they say, in reply, Reverend. Sāriputta said this, the footprints of all creatures that walk can fit inside an elephant's footprint. So an elephant's footprint is said to be the biggest of them all. In the same way, all skillful qualities are included in the Four Noble Truths. So when I was listening, there's some discussion. This is kusala. So that's skillful or beneficial. You could say the and the Dhamma can be translated as quality, but some translate this as teaching. So I like to think of it as all the teachings. It's different. It's just kind of a different sense of this, skillful qualities or all the teachings. And some translators say that all the teachings of the Buddha is what's meant here. And I agree with that. So, and there's the rhetorical question, what for? Hello, I see a couple of people have just joined. Welcome. So this is I've just started the at Majjhima Nikaya 28, and it's a greater discourse on the elephant's footprint. So we're talking about the Four Noble Truths. The noble truth of suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. That's the Four Noble Truths. And what is the truth of suffering? Rebirth is suffering. Old age is suffering. Death is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress is suffering. I think I have to move this over a little bit so I can see here. Okay. Sadness is suffering. Distress are suffering, and all these things are suffering. Not getting what you wish for is suffering. In brief, the five grasping aggregates are suffering. So all the aggregates relate to all these different kinds of suffering that are described, like rebirth is how usually I've initially saw birth as suffering as translations I saw, but rebirth is how Bhante Sujato, this is jatapi. Birth, rebirth, conception. So the Buddha is teaching that birth starts at conception. So then we have what's called nama rupa, which is name and form or mentality and materiality. So then the five aggregates are describing nama rupa actually. So nama rupa encompasses the five aggregates. So as you can see, like the body and consciousness are born, and then there's the aging of the body, but you might even say consciousness ages. And then the sorrow, lamentation, and all that. This is all mental suffering. So this is the mentality. So That's how the five aggregates, it says in brief, the five grasping aggregates. And that's a whole discussion too. What is grasping? Are they grasping, are we grasping the aggregates? So I think it's a combination of the two, that both we grasp at the aggregates, and the aggregates themselves are grasping. So what are the five grasping aggregates? They are as follows: the grasping aggregate of form, which is the body; feeling, which is a sensation of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral; perception is how we identify things in the world; and then choices. This is sankhara, and some people argue with Bhante Sujato, and he defends his translation of sankhara. This is okay. Mental activity that is clung to. That's how the dictionary here translates it. So volitional formations, mental formations, choices. This is a Sankara is very complex. So it's one of those Pali words that one word probably doesn't do justice, especially since in different contexts, it can mean different things. But it's a very active, because it's usually association with formations, forming or creating or putting together. So then Sāriputta Venerable starts to go into describing the aggregate of form. And what is the aggregate of grasping form? Excuse me. And what is the grasping aggregate of form? The four principal states, and form derived from the four principal states. So this actually, a lot of people translate as the four great elements. That happens twice here. It's just spoken about twice. And so this is four, the number four. And what arises out of that? What is derived from these four great elements? And what are the four principal states, or the four great elements? The elements of earth, water, fire, and air. So this is material form, can be described using these four elemental properties. So it could be seen as earth as solid, water as liquid, fire as heat, and air as a gas or gaseous. So that it actually in elementary school, I learned about these four properties. And all matter is made up of these properties. And with fire having or heat, you can say fire is heat. Heat affects like water. When water is below zero or below freezing, it's ice. So it's more, so it becomes solid. And then when water is boiled, some of it evaporates and it becomes more gaseous. So heat affects the other three. So there is some in modern, if that helps with understanding these elemental properties, and this is how matter was viewed in the time of the Buddha, and it's actually, it does have some basis. And what is the earth element? the earth element may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior earth element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that is hard, solid, and appropriated. This includes head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, undigested food, feces, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's hard, solid, and appropriated. So this is talking about one's own body and what we would consider more solid aspects of the body. And anything else, because this is admitting it's not a complete list. Anything else internal. So internal, ajit tongue. So whenever you hear whenever you see this word, this is talking about one's own experience, really. So internally, so that as far as the body is concerned, one's own body, anything hard within the body. Or it's hard or soft. There's a, you can also consider the weight of the body as an aspect of earth element, as a gravitational pull, the earth on this body. And hardness, softness, and some teachers talk about the smoothness or roughness of the body. And that's an experiential way to, in meditation, we can contemplate the body. But so the hardness and softness may be, it's pointed out as a solid aspect of the body that we can experience. So it says here, the interior earth element and the exterior earth element are just earth element. This should be truly seen with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. So for most people, the body, this is a really strong identity is with our body and our bodies being ours. And it's could be thought of as borrowed goods that we need to take care of the body, but it's really, out of our control, if we could say. May body not get sick, may body not get ill, may body look this way or that way. I would like to be young. I don't want my body to age. Something like that. And so that's totally out of our control. But I would say that it's better to just think of it as that we do need to care for the body the best we can. But we also understand there are these forces of nature. It's just part of nature. The body is going to return to nature. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the earth element, detaching the mind from the earth element. So detaching it as yours or yourself. Yeah, if we're really attached to the sense of self in the body and we see ourselves aging, it can be really distressing, or we think other people think we're unattractive or or we think we're very attractive. And then so there's this really a strong attachment to this I am, or racially, there's racial pride, this is very destructive, and groups of people all identifying with one another, thinking that they're better than others just because of some kind of physical characteristic. And this causes a lot of grief and pain in the world. So not attaching to being disillusioned is disillusion is a strong, disenchanted, disinterested, disillusioned. This is nibindati. So the mind, that's the mind here, mind or heart. Virajati, it says that, loses interest. It's not as, we're not as bound to this concept of self attached to the body. Now here comes, I don't know if you could call it a metaphor. There comes a time when the exterior water flares up. And this actually happens, but not quite as it's described in the sutta. At that time, the exterior element, earth element, vanishes. So I believe he's talking about flooding. And yeah, I heard different discussions of what that was actually describing by different teachers. But you could, even with flooding, then what used to be a place where a person might be living could be flooded, and then it's vanished. It's underwater. So for all its great age, the earth element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. We also know from science that that's true, that the earth, it's only so long that the earth will be, or even a viable place for people to live, but also there'll be a supernova of the sun and the earth will be totally destroyed. And that'll be, I don't know, there's predictions of when that will happen, but this might be millions of years, I'm not sure. So here, for all its great age, I think Bhante Bodhi has a different way. It's this word here. It does say old age, but it talks about it being great and extensive. So for all the earth's greatness or extensiveness, and also the fact that it's been around for a long time, seems like in human history, we don't know of a time when it wasn't around. So we assume it's always going to be around, unconsciously maybe. But it's saying here, even the great earth is impermanent. What then of this empirical body appropriated by craving? Rather than I or mine or I am, they consider it to be none of these things. So there's the appropriated by clinging, grasped with craving, clung to by desire. So there's appropriation at birth, and then we cling to it. So then this is the, indeed, for someone considering this, that this is to this statement, rather than thinking I or mine or I am, the person considers this none of these things. Now here is a challenge. If others abuse, attack, harass, or trouble that mendicant, they understand. So in the time of the Buddha, the monks were wandering for long periods of time. They weren't staying at a vihara unless it was the rainy season. And they may be subject to, if they're in a village where there were villages where or areas where the Buddha and his monastic community weren't respected. So it is possible that this may happen. So they're talking about verbally here on this point. This point is talking about being insulted, attacked verbally, harassed. So then the mendicant, the mendicant understands this painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me. So this is quite advanced, I think. If someone is insulting you and this is what occurs to you, oh, this is unpleasant. This is a ear contact, contact at the ear. And this is dukkha, vedana, a painful feeling. How many people would do that? They would think, oh, they're insulting me, and they would get very upset. But instead, this is the instruction. This painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me. That's dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. So this dependent, and there's a contact. Raw experience, touch, how they say pasa. They see that contact, feeling, perception, choices, that's the sankhara again. Here's sankhara. Intention, volitional formations, choice, karmic activity is impermanent. So here we have anicca. So we have contact at the ear, feeling, which is vedana, which is one of the aggregates, arises. And then there's the perception, oh, somebody is insulting me. And then sankhara, in this case, a choice, might have a choice here to start thinking, oh, this person is insulting me and they're just a rotten so-and-so, and you could get angry. You could choose to do that. Or you could choose to say to yourself, oh, this is all dependent on contact. And they see that contact is impermanent, vedana is impermanent, feeling is impermanent. Sanya, this is also an aggregate, one of the aggregates, that's impermanent. Sankhara, and then the sankhara is impermanent. So that choice, that flash of, oh, a feeling that I'm going to get mad, and then the wheels start turning, and I want to say something rude back, or give them an angry look, or stomp away in anger and fume internally, whatever. I could say to myself, oh, there's also this is impermanent too, and letting it pass. Consciousness, so the consciousness, there's the first dependent on consciousness, contact, there's contact. And we'll get into that. So the this vijnana, all of this is arising simultaneously. All 5 aggregates here are arising. And we can see that these are all impermanent. We don't have to cling to the painful vedana. How many of us go, somebody says something rude to us or insulting to us, years later, what that person said is still festering. The memory will come up somehow. Something will remind us, or we'll just collect all the negative things that people said about us and what we think about ourselves. And then that just becomes this formation, this sankhara. And so then it becomes part of our character that we have this negative opinion, or we're very defensive, and we're uh, um, very hateful towards anyone who criticizes us, and we hold a grudge against that person. So this is actually, if we can do this, if we can just see the impermanence of it and say that this painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me, and it's dependent on contact, and see contact is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, perception is impermanent, and the sankhara, this is where I'm making the choice. That this is where Bhante Sujato's translation is very useful. The other ones too, I think I like, because it's dealing with kama here, kamic activity, volitional formation. So I think all these translations are helpful when we consider that we do have a choice. We can say, no, I'm not going to go down that wrong road and get angry or feel bad about myself or take what they said too seriously. If someone's insulting me, I might say, oh, is there truth in that? Is there something I can do to improve the situation? Or like the Ajahn Chah said, if someone calls you a dog, you look around and see you don't have a tail. Okay, I'm not a dog. That's their opinion. Who cares? Um, so they go through this process of seeing the arising of all five aggregates in this one instance. And then it says, based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided. So this is where when I listen to different teachers talk about this here, what that element is, Bhante or Ajahn Thanissaro says it's actually the earth element, because the Sāriputta is talking about the physical elements, but the element of, or the dhatu, this is dhatu, and then aramana is based on the element with that state as a support. So it's supportive, can be used an object to consider at that all, it may be the impermanence seems to be what stands out to me, but then there's one of the suttas, it's in advice to Rahula. It's a greater discourse on the advice to Rahula, and I think it's Majjhima Nikaya 62. But the Buddha tells Rahula, meditate like the earth, and the earth being vast and immeasurable. If you can just imagine the vastness of the earth, and then people drop dirty things on the earth, but the earth isn't humiliated or horrified by that. And so if somebody insults you, then it's just like a little piece of trash maybe falling on this great earth. Your mind can be expansive and not affected by that. And it says, based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided. So I think just contemplating the impermanence would also do this. Either way, but we don't latch on to the painful contact, and we don't make it, we don't feed it. We don't We don't perpetuate it. We don't hold that unpleasant feeling and that unpleasant perception. And then the sankara creating all this negativity and anger in the mind. We can just let go. We don't have to be prey to papancha, a mental proliferation. We don't have to be assailed by our own minds. Others might treat that mendicant with disliking, loathing, and this is detesting them, striking them with fists, stones, sticks, and swords. So again, at the time of the Buddha, they were wandering, so they may have be physically attacked. If they're in a really hostile region and people don't understand or are hostile towards Buddhists, which happened or happens in some areas. So they understand this body is such that fists, stones, sticks, and swords strike it. So this is coming back to the physical form being fragile. But the Buddha has said in the advice on the simile of the saw, even if low-down bandits were to sever you from your limb from limb with a two-handled saw, anyone who had a malevolent thought on that account would not be following my instructions. So this is quite a challenge. And in the sutta, the simile of the saw, and that's Majjhima Nikaya number 21, MN 21, the Buddha instructs that the way we should respond if someone says anything insulting or we hear unkind words, or even if someone were to attack us physically, that our mind should be unaffected. We should utter no harmful or evil words. We should have compassion for the other person's welfare. And then starting with them, we should pervade the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, without ill will. So I think the idea here is to be cultivating equanimity, is what Sāriputta is pointing out in particular. In the simile of the saw, equanimity, loving kindness, and compassion were all to be worked with. And so we should always be cultivating them. So no matter what people say or do, our minds will not be overcome with hatred and anger. So he says, so we should reflect on the advice of the simile of the saw, and then what happens? It says, my energy shall be roused up and unflagging, my mindfulness established and lucid, my body tranquil and undisturbed, my mind immersed in samadhi. So that would be good if we can if we're able to do this. I don't think we should wait until we're under attack to try to do this. I think that if we're cultivating serenity of mind, peacefulness of mind, mindfulness, this energetic to abandon unwholesome mental states. Now, this is it's almost like he's using tough love here, because it is a possible consequence of being a mendicant and living and being truly homeless and wandering, that we may encounter hostile people. So it says, gladly now, let fists, stones, sticks, and swords strike this body. Or this is how the instructions of the Buddha are followed. I mean, maybe they're willing to be able to endure this. I don't think anyone should seek it out. I don't think that's really what's being meant here, but that we should have our mind prepared for anything that might happen, that this is the ideal here. This is what we should be working towards. And so Venerable Sāriputta continues, while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful may not become stabilized in them. So even though we're doing our best, it says that this might not happen. We still have work to do. So here's reflecting on the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And this is upekkha as a equanimity based on wholesome states. So this is, again, I'm thinking that we should be cultivating all four Brahma Viharas, and also deepening of samadhi as best as we can, the stability of mind. So if we see that we are lacking equanimity, even like minor things happening in our lives, and where our equanimity is blown. I think contemplating the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and working with the Brahma Viharas is a really excellent basis for developing this. So, but if while recollecting the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha in this way, based on the skillful, equanimity based on the skillful may not be stabilized in them, in that case, they should stir up a sense of urgency. It's my loss, it's my misfortune that while recollecting the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the teachings, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does not become stabilized in me. They're like a daughter-in-law who stirs up a sense of urgency when they see their father-in-law. So at the time of the Buddha, women were married into a family. So they married a husband, but they went to the husband's family because they lived in extended families. So to please the parents, the husband's parents, and show that they're fitting in, they're worthy, they're worthy of that family. But if while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, or the Dhamma, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. So I don't think we should browbeat if we are lacking equanimity. That's kind of counterproductive. But there's a sense of urgency of that I really need to apply myself to this. And then I think we should rejoice when we see, in this situation, I did respond with equanimity instead of getting upset. I'm seeing progress, so kind of rejoice when we are stabilized in equanimity. So now there's a repeating with the other elements here. So I'll go through this a little more quickly because I've discussed a lot already that's in common with the other three elements. And what is the water element? The water element may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior water element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that's water, watery, and appropriated. This includes bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, snot, synovial fluid, urine, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's water, watery, and appropriated. So you can visualize these internal elements as the water element. And that's how it is spoken of in the suttas, and a contemplation of experiencing that. You can experience the moisture in your mouth or the surface of your skin, the sweat or tears. But it's also considered water element is also cohesion. And if the body was completely devoid of moisture, it would crumble. So it's actually what's holding it together. And that oily is anything liquidy, because it's talking about oily aspects of the body as well. So it says fat and grease. So what it's really talking about is liquidity and moisture. So the interior water element and the exterior water element are just water element. This should be truly seen with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the water element, detaching the mind from the water element. There comes a time when the exterior water element flares up. It sweeps away villages, towns, cities, countries, and regions. And we've seen this in current time where there's flooding. Flooding is really terrible in some parts of the world. And even this country, we're having horrible floods with the hurricanes and monsoons in India. And this is also happening. There comes a time when the water in the ocean sink down 100 leagues, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 700 leagues. So this is on the surface of the earth, we're experiencing drought also. And inland seas have dried up. There comes a time when the water in the ocean stands just 7 palms deep. It's talking about palm trees as a length, or 6 or 5 or 4 or 2 or even 1 palm tree deep. There comes a time when the water in the ocean stands just 7 fathoms deep, 5, 4, 3, 2, or even just 1 fathom deep. This is talking about extreme drought. There comes a time when the water in the ocean stands just a half a fathom deep, or waist deep, or knee deep, or even just ankle deep. There comes a time when there's not even enough water left in the great ocean to wet the tip of the toe. So for all its great age, the water element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. What then of this inferior body, appropriated by craving? This is short-lived, brief standing, remaining only a short time as a inferior is how Bhante Sujato has translated that. So appropriated, grasped by with craving, clung to by with desire. So if we consider even water, the water element is impermanent. And then this body, what of this body? If while reflecting, and then it's ellipsed. If while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillfulness does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. So actually, when we go back to these contemplations, it should be bringing up a sense of equanimity rather than despair when we think of anicca or an impermanence, and internally and externally, how there's this constant flow between internal and external elements, and also the psychological or the mentality always changing, that we don't have to be trapped in a mental state. So I think contemplating impermanence may be one of the, along with the Brahma Viharas, as a way to develop equanimity. At this point, much has been done by that mendicant. So if we were able to stabilize the mind and equanimity. And what is the fire element? The fire element may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior fire element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that's fiery, and appropriated. This includes that which warms, that which ages, that which heats you up when feverish, that which properly digests food and drink, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's fiery, and appropriated. So this talks about metabolism, actually, and the aging of the body. We actually, it's believed that the heat is a part of what causes aging in the time of the Buddha. But it's interesting that, when we have to have food in order to warm the body. This is called the interior fire element. The interior fire element and the exterior fire element are just fire element. This should be truly seen with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the fire element, detaching the mind from the fire element. There comes a time when the exterior fire element flares up. We've also seen this in our lifetimes. It burns up villages, towns, cities, countries, and regions until it reaches a green field, a roadside, a cliff, a body of water, or a cleared parkland where it's extinguished due to not being fed. In our day, with the people, there's, firefighters really struggle to put the fires out. And there comes a time when anyone goes looking for a fire, taking just a chicken feather or a scrap of sinew as kindling. So there's like so little fuel available. And I've heard of this in countries, impoverished countries, or people in refugee camps, just scavenging for fuel. They use cow dung or twigs or things. And some walking for long distances just to find enough fuel for their cook fire. So for all its age, the fire element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. What then of this I can't pronounce this quite right, ephemeral. It's ephemeral body. Ephemeral body appropriated by craving. Rather than I or mine or I am, they consider it to be none of these. If, while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does not become stabilized. Oh, equanimity based on the skillful does become stabilized in them. They're happy with that. At this point, much has been done by that mendicant. It looks like we're getting, like we might need to have part 2 of this. I guess I'm getting to a point where we're not going to finish in time. But this is already a lot. And what is the air element? The air element may be internal, interior or exterior. I'm used to, for another way of saying it, because I've read Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation so much. It may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior air element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that's air, airy, and appropriated. This includes winds going up or down, winds in the belly or in the bowels, winds that flow through the limbs, in-breaths and out-breaths, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's air, airy, and appropriated. So for meditation, the in and out breathing is often what's chosen. It can be called wind if it's like the expanding and you feel the expanding and contracting of the body, like the abdomen being pushed out by the diaphragm pushing down on the organs. And then, so the body, also you can feel an expansion in the whole body. If you're sensitive, you feel of course, the lungs and the belly extending, but if you're really sensitive, you can feel this movement throughout the whole body. And in a lot of traditions, the winds are the energy that move through the body. In medicine, the Chinese medicine, they talk about the winds in the body. So there's a little bit different understanding about what that is. But practically, in and out breathing is a really, really good way to contemplate breath or air. This is called the interior air element. The interior air element and the exterior air element are just air element. This should be truly seen with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When you truly see this with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the air element, detaching the mind from the air element. There comes a time when the exterior air element flares up. It sweeps away villages, towns, cities, countries, and regions. Again, this has happened in our time where there's been tornadoes, there comes a time in the last month of summer when they look for wind by using a palm leaf or fan, and even grasses on the drip fringe of a thatch roof don't stir. So the air is just so still that at the time of the Buddha, they had thatched roofs made of straw, and that even the straw doesn't move at all. It's just the air is just so heavy and still. So for all its great age, the air element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. what then of this ephemeral body appropriated by craving rather than I or mine or I am? They consider it to be none of these things. So this goes back to, this is not mine. I am not it. This is not myself, this body. And then it goes back to what the first, it was ellipsed with the other ones. If others abuse, attack, harass, and trouble that mendicant, they understand this painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me. That's dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. They see contact, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness are impermanent. Based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided. So this again, it's looking at the impermanence of all five aggregates, even just in a single moment. Everything is changing, and we can choose to latch on to unpleasant feeling, or we can let go. And then, like I was saying, at the time of the Buddha, they may have been attacked. Hopefully none of us will have this experience. I'm just gonna go, what you call it, I'm gonna paraphrase here just so we can go a little further on in this sutta. So then he's advising, Venerable Sāriputta is advising them to recollect the simile of the saw, and again to bring up not only equanimity, but compassion and loving kindness, and to avoid hatred. It's on account of if anyone who has a thought of hate on that account would not be following my instructions. So this is, I think, really the most important aspect, is not allow hatred to take over our minds. And instead, my energy shall be roused up and unflagging, my mindfulness established and lucid, my body tranquil and undisturbed, my mind immersed in samadhi. So it's really important for us to be developing these qualities in ourselves: energy, mindfulness, and then the stillness, the quietude of samadhi. We don't wait until someone attacks you. We need to work on these things now. While recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful may not become established in them. In that case, they should stir up a sense of urgency. And then I'm going to skip over the part about the daughter-in-law, because just maybe pleasing the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is our, and developing equanimity. So bringing up that urgency to do that. But if while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. So let's rejoice when we see that happening. At this point, much has been done by the mendicant. Okay, it's after 9 now, and there's quite, I guess I don't want to just rush over this. So it may be we'll have to come back to this teaching. He's talking about the space element here. I think that I will end here. We'll have to come back because it's a little over an hour, and I'm going to allow time for a discussion, but I'm going to close, and we can just discuss. It's a lot of this teaching is a very important teaching, and just contemplating the elements and the impermanence of the elements, and then also the impermanence all the aggregates. And hopefully this helps us with stabilizing our mind. It's not meant to destabilize the mind. It's meant to bring up a sense of equanimity. Like this is the nature of things. This is the nature of reality. Uh, we're just part of nature, and not to be too attached. And like I said, we do care for it. It's like kind of like I like to think of it like there's a simile talking about borrowed goods. And so we want to take good care of it. We don't want to do things that cause harm to our bodies or to our minds. So we'll close there, and then I'm going to stop the share screen. And we'll pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and then I'll stop the YouTube, and then people are welcome to stay on that are live in the audience for a little discussion if they'd like to discuss this. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivadimi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. So thank you for your kind attention, and I'm going to just close the